the Commandeer anniversary is coming up. It was released at the end of this month last year, so I wanted to go around and talk to everybody who was a part of that project. And the first one to respond to me was Jalipaz from Audioconfusion, and I recorded the Commandeer here after a long search, a very long search, and it was quite a process to end up here, but I'm really glad that I did, because your space is so unique that you have here, you know. You have the room that's actually right here that is a good room that has the natural reverb, which is exactly what I was looking for. And I know we've talked about this before, but how did you come to that sort of style that you want to gather the natural reverb of a room?
Let's go back a little bit further. I don't know where I heard about this or if I just thought of it or whatever, but I used to stick microphones in containers, and I would put those in the room, and that would be kind of my echo chamber. It would, you know, like they talk like this or something like that, and so I would stick it in a container and have it in the room, and I would kind of mix that in and stuff, and it sounded interesting. Sometimes it just didn't work, you know, whatever. And then I started like sticking the microphone in my air conditioning ductwork in old houses instead of like insulation ductwork. It was metal boxes. Mm-hmm. And so I would stick it in the air conditioning ductwork, and that got a little better. It was like bigger, you know. And I mean, you know, I could stick it out in the hallway or something like that, but so anyways, fast forward to 2003, I had this studio and had a triangle room. Very, very, I mean, it went to a point at the end. It wasn't just like triangular, it was a triangle. And so what I did is I stuck my ribbon mic back there and in the almost to the point. And the door that was between that room and the live room was pretty crappy, and so I got a lot of bleed. And so I would just stick that in there, crank it up, and let the band play. And then I just started mixing that in, and everything just went oh, you know, it was an aha moment. And so I just I mean after that. I went back to, because I went to that from another studio, and then I went back to that other studio, and I didn't have that, and I really missed it, and I was trying to duplicate it with artificial reverb. I mean, I would do everything I could. I downloaded impulse reverbs, which basically impulse reverbs is capturing the reverb time and kind of the, I don't know, I guess just capturing the reverb time and the tone of the room. Like if you went to a garage and you shot a starter pistol and you had a microphone and ran into this program, that the sound after the starter pistol would be the impulse that it catches, and it all these algorithms and stuff. You know, I'm not techie, so I don't know the exact, you know, but I get the gist. It just wasn't the same. Having that real time of the real time effect of just being in a room. You know, I mean, engineers use room mics, which I have room mics too, which is mics farther away from the source in the same room. I just kind of took it a little further, and you know, so this room I left pretty untreated, and keep the doors open and shove a mic in there facing the corner, and it's nice.
Right, because that's what we did with the Commandeers. That I was actually sitting in the more soundproof room with the door open, and the mic was in this room.
Right.
Yeah, and you built this place from the ground up, right?
Yeah.
So
I had that in mind.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's very similar to the hall effect. That's the whole idea, is down the hall. So you have, in that one studio that I had, that triangle room, I actually had a hall too, and so I would do that. But the problem was with my hall is it was treated, and there was stuff that was in the way, and sucking up sound waves and stuff like that. So it didn't work as well. But if you look on like reverb units, you'll see like a hall effect. And so what that is essentially the same thing. Picture a long hallway in some kind of office building with no carpet, an old long hallway. And you have an amplifier at one end of the hallway, and you have the mic at the other end. That is essentially what's going on. And that's what they did with echo chambers, like the real true echo chambers or reverb chambers, is the amplifier would be a signal sent from the mixer. Okay, so that's your send. So it would send the vocal to the amplifier. Then the microphone would, at the other end of the hallway, would be the return. That would come back on the return signal of the mixer, and then they would blend the two. So that's essentially what I'm doing. But I can cut out it's not. I'm not doing it after the fact. I'm doing it in real time. And so what they would do is, the closer the microphone was to the amplifier, the tighter the sound. And then they would move it back, and that's what made it longer. And then they started getting fancier, and they were like, oh, well, let's make it long, but let's treat the room so it's a different kind of sound. You know, a tighter but distant sound. You know, or take everything away and make the decay just last long, like a gymnasium or something, you know. And so that's essentially what I'm doing, but a lot simpler.
Right.
So it's an echo chamber for the most part.
That's really cool, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to record with you in Audioconfusion, was because of this room. And as far as I know, and from what I was researching, this is the only one like this in the Valley, and the way that your ideas are.
I don't know, maybe.
I mean, from what I searched all over the place, you're the only one that I could find. So, but I thought it was really cool because we have the same ideas about, you know, trying to capture natural reverb.
Right.
And what is it that you like about the natural reverb as opposed to adding digital?
Well, that's a hard question, because, I mean, that's like describing a color to a fine print. Like,
well, just your personal opinion.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, it just doesn't sound right. I mean, I seldom get asked, or I often get asked, how I get certain sounds. And I used to do this with engineers. I'd be like, oh man, how'd you get that sound? And they'd give me some bullshit answer like, I don't know, man. Like, it just happened. Like, that's not even the sound we were going for, you know? It's like, you know, and I mean, that happens with musicians too. It's like, you know, like Jerry Garcia is like, he's missing that finger. He plays a certain way because he's missing that finger. And so, like, for musicians to come in and be like, oh man, I want to sound like Jerry Garcia, it's like, well, cut off your finger. You know, and then take a bunch of acid, and, you know, like, you have to be in that, you have to be him to have that, that frame of mind, you know, that you have to be that person. So when people ask me, like, how I get a sound that I get, I have a bullshit answer, and it's like, I don't know. That's the only sound I can get. Like, you don't understand, like, I've tried to go a different direction, just to, you know, be able to match up with a competition or something, you know, like anybody would, but that's not me, you know, and I hate going against the grain of my personal self, but I just can't do it. I hear things. I have to hear things a certain way. Somebody sent me something last night to kind of give them notes or something, and I mean, there's just certain things that I hear that other people won't hear because of the way I've been programmed as a person. You know, the way I hear music is differently than the way you hear music. It's like, do we all see, you know, red the same color? You know, is red look to me like it does to you? You know, like, you can't really answer that. So, going back to what I like about reverb is it just sounds right. About natural reverb, it just sounds right. Now, I do use artificial reverb sometimes because to get a good natural reverb sound, you really have to excite the room. And sometimes things are too quiet, and it'll sound, it just doesn't sound right. So I do have to use a little bit of artificial reverb, but I usually use it in a way where you know that it's there. I don't use it as like a sweetener or like trying to cover up something. It's like you'll know it's there. It's swimming, you know. Unless I was took everybody to a gymnasium or something, there's no way I could get that, you know. So
right.
But yeah, it just sounds right to me. I can't. Or I should say, or maybe I should say, artificial reverb doesn't sound right to me more than 90% of the time. I just haven't found one that I like. You know, there might be one out there that I like. I haven't tried every single one, but as of now, I haven't found one. There's just something about recording a whole band and listening to it without that lounge mic in there, and then slowly bringing up that lounge mic, everything just comes to life. And you can't beat that.
Right, yeah, I completely agree. And what I was looking for with the Commandeer especially was to use a room like it was another instrument. You know,
yes.
to add in what it has to, just like what the guitar tones are. Like one guitar tone is different from another, like a Martin and a Gibson are going to sound completely different, just like different rooms are going to sound completely different.
Exactly.
So I mean, that's what I was going for, was using the room as an instrument,
right?
And using its reverb as the instrument too.
Yeah, and sometimes that room doesn't sound good with bands. Like, you know, it's an empty room. That's all it is. It's not designed any certain way. It's an empty room. I really lucked out. You know, like, I really lucked out. Like, I put the mic over there one time, didn't sound right. I put it, you know, I moved it all over the place. I found the spot, just set it there, and it works. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't sound good. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great room for sure. And going back to what you were saying about how we may see colors differently and how you hear something differently from the way that I hear something differently. You don't play any instruments, right? So you're coming at a completely different angle than the musicians that come in.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. When I like 5 years into doing this full time, I was wondering, like, do I have an advantage? Do I have, you know, a disadvantage? I just think it's different. But not only not being a musician, but I don't even really look at it as music. It's more sounds to me. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why I think I mix this the way I do, because it's sounds. And what I'm trying to do is, a balanced engineer. I'm trying to balance out the sounds so nothing sticks out too much or too little. Like, I'm just trying to make it nice and even. And so I personally, when I listen to a mix, if something jars my ears, that's the thing that I address. Mm-hmm. so, and I think that like, I think that that's the difference. Not being a musician, but that's the difference in the way that I do things, is because I look at it as more as sound. Like I love noise, love noises. You know, driving down the road, driving on a brick road.
Yep.
You know, like I think about those. You know, I used to have this old car where the radio wasn't grounded, and and it was a stick shift, and so when you shifted the gears, this high whine tone would go up and, you know, pitch, and then, you know, it would go down in pitch and up, and so I'd be driving according to the pitches because I like noise, you know, the genre of music or whatever. Like I like noise like that. Like it's the soundscapes, you know, and I really do look at everything that I record as a soundscape, be it you know, country or metal or pop or whatever. It's all the same to me. It really is. I don't know, some people might get upset with me by saying that, but it's all the same to me because of the generalization of what I'm looking at, which is sound.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that's why, you know, if I do have a sound, that's why. It's because of the way I look at music.
Yeah. And I think it was interesting, especially recording the Commandeer, and I'm sure you do it with the other bands you record, is that you come in and you say, well, what if you tried this instead? And because you're not coming from the musician's perspective, you're coming from the listener's perspective, it clicks, and it's like, whoa, I didn't think about that. That's a really good idea. And then those sort of things are incorporated into the music too. So
Yeah.
I think that it's coming from an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't produce a lot of bands, but when I do produce bands, that's kind of like I'll tell people, like, I just kind of throw a wrench in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to rewrite the song. I'm just kind of like, you know, well, you know, how about if we don't end with the chorus, or how about we don't have a bridge in this song, or you know what I mean, or how about we just stop dead in the tracks, or how about we extend this, or you know, like. I'm just trying to mix things up a bit because I think that like a lot of musicians gonna get stuck in a rut. I mean, geez, I recorded so many bands. They all start the same way. They all end the same way. You know, it's like that Nickelback thing where two Nickelback songs next to each other, and it's like the exact same thing. Yeah. Same. It's crazy, and it's because they're following a regimen, you know. It's like verse, chorus, bridge, you know, chorus or whatever, you know, and then how many measures in that, and then they're just kind of built to have this certain tempo, and so if you have the same tempo or close to it, and then you have the same amount of measures and you're gonna have the same length and song and same parts, and you know, and so many bands follow that same, you know, their standards, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's, you know, if you're going for a certain audience, you kind of gotta, you know, and a lot of the bands I record are going for a certain kind of sound. You gotta kind of break that monotony. Right. You know,
right.
And still not always. So
right. Well, and they're in the song the whole time. You know,
exactly. They're so close to
perspective.
It. They're too close to it.
Right.
They can't see that, and so like it frustrates me when some bands don't want a producer. Not even just me, like as a producer. But just hiring somebody. I mean, a producer, in my opinion, is just somebody with almost like a fifth band member for a small period of time, with kind of more of a band leader they have a larger opinion. Their opinion matters more than most of the other band members. And so it just frustrates me when these bands don't want to put out the money to, hire a producer or just somebody with a, different opinion. But yet all the bands they listen to have producers.
Right.
I mean, even the most independent, noisy, like edgy bands have a producer.
Right.
Most bands have a producer of some sort. Maybe not like a Rick Rubin or whatever, but of some sort. They have a producer. They have that person in the background telling them like, "Hey, why don't you try this?" Or "Don't do that." Like, "What are you thinking there?"
Right.
Slow it down. So. Yeah, it frustrates me, but yeah, you just get I just see stuff differently. I don't know. I get bored easily, so I think that I do kind of do things break up. That's just naturally the way I go. It's just breaking things up. So.
Yep, and it was definitely helpful for me when I was recording the Commandeer that you were here throwing in your suggestions because I couldn't afford a producer.
Yeah.
But I hired the other musicians that came in, and I sort of used everybody and that's what I like to do is sort of bring people in and use everybody's opinion, and it definitely helps from everybody's coming from a different perspective. To make Commandeer even more than I ever expected it to be.
Yeah, I mean, you hire those musicians because of their musicianship, and so you got to let them kind of be their, that animal of, like that's what they're drawn to. Like let them do their thing. That might not have been what you were thinking. It might be completely different than what you were thinking. But if you let them do their thing, it's going to be way better. And that's, I think that's what any good producer does. Is, because you were the producer for Commandeer. I mean, absolutely. You brought the band. You hired the musicians. You picked the engineer. That's what a producer does normally.
Yeah, but I was in it so much.
Yeah,
I needed to sort of.
But making that decision of allowing them to do their thing, that is a lot of times what a producer just does. Is they just they kind of inspire you to get excited about something that might have been old.
Right.
Like what I'll do is I'll make suggestions. And I'll say, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then I'll say, these are just my suggestions, but think about it and then run with it. It's like, and then like, I this might sound demeaning, but I kind of look at it as like training wheels. Like the band's on training wheels for a little while. And then when they, and then I feel like once they get that hump, over that hump or the training wheels, part of it, that then they can really understand that how they maybe should write or I don't know. I just kind of feel like if they accomplish something that they're trying to do at one time, then everything relaxes and they like the monkey's off their back and they're just less tense and they can look back at like their CD and go, man, yeah, we can do this. We did this. Like we can do this again. And it wasn't that hard. Like that's the thing is like the best written songs I find that the best written songs are the songs that people wrote 15 minutes before they come to the studio. I've had many times I've had bands come in like, oh, we wrote this last night. It's not priority. Let's just try it. And then they'll start playing. I'm like, oh, man, this is awesome. This is your best song. 9 times out of 10, that it's always their best song. And so, I was running on a tangent. What was I talking about when I was talking about the...
We're talking about producers and stuff.
Yeah. Being on the training wheels. So yeah, I mean, they'll find out that it was easy, and that they can do it, and then they're just relaxed and they're off from their training wheels, and you let them go and you let them run free and do what they want, and I really see that. I see that because I get a lot of young bands and they're kind of in this band identity crisis, and I talk about that a lot with colleagues or whatever, is these band identity crisis. They don't know what they should sound like. They don't know. It's like, oh, what kind of music? I don't know. Like, or they're so cross genre,
right?
Because they want to be, they want every band member to have their opinion, or their opinion, and be a democracy or whatever. But cross genres are really hard to do. And you lose focus.
Right. You
show one song to an audience, and they're like, yeah! And you get all the Queens of Stone Age fans. But then you show them another song, and they're like, yeah! And you get all the, Apples in Stereo or something like that. It's like, they just go back and forth, and the audience is confused. It's and so, that's the identity crisis, and so I look at a producer as kind of more of a one shot thing. It's like let him or her guide you the way to maybe what you're kind of more going towards, and then once you get there and you understand what you did and how to make it sound that way, and all that, then you let go. Then the producer lets go. The band, can do its thing, on their own, and it's just, and it's awesome. It really is. It's not to sound cliche, but it's like a butterfly. It's true.
The caterpillar to the butterfly metaphor. No, I mean, if it works, it works.
I never thought of that until right now, but it totally. In my mind, that's kind of how I picture it. Like, they're just like, ooh. or the whole, like, I have kids, so, like, teaching them how to ride their bike, and then once they're off the training wheels, it's like, go to the store. Pick
me up some milk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, But, yeah. No, man, it's lots of fun. I'm so happy that people allow me to be part of their art, because, I mean, if I just go back and just think about, before I got into, recording, before I was known for recording, it's like, I was just a guy who listened to, music and just, I knew that I listened to music differently, but I didn't think anything of it, and then I just started dabbling, kind of forcing myself out there and stuff. But just to know who I was before that, for people to let me be a part of their art, for people to ask me to be a part of their art is just amazing, and I'm thankful for it every day. And I get frustrated every day, but I'm frustrated because I care so much.
Right.
And it's a love-hate relationship, but I mostly love it.
That's awesome. Well, I think you come at it from a really unique perspective from other engineers around, and it was really good talking to you again about the Commandeer.
Yeah.
And talking about the style and stuff. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, man,
to talk
absolutely.
to me. This is Jalipaz from Audioconfusion. You can catch him online at audioconfusion.com, and you also got a new sampler out, right?
Yeah.
That has like 20 different bands on it. So definitely check that out.
23.
Wow.
Yeah, audioconfusion.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, so you can get a real good sense of his style that way. So thanks again, Jalipaz.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Let's go get some food.
Yeah.